What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TCG Empire YouTube channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at Great Tusk. Now, Great Tusk is a brand new card that has been released in Temporal Forces, and it adds another mill type deck to the format. So Great Tusk, an ancient Pokemon with 140 HP. You use this for land collapse. You discard the top card of your opponent's deck, and if you played an ancient supporter during your turn, you get to discard 3 more. So in total, if you play an ancient supporter, you're discarding 4 cards a turn, which can be huge, especially with things like Sada's Vitality, as well as some other supporters that we'll get to later on. Great Tusk, it's definitely something that is going to be around for a while, and it definitely keeps certain decks in check from, just setting up their board and doing things. Things like Charizard really rely on setting up energy, accelerating through the deck in order to progress the game, and things like Great Tusk kind of are there to counter that, so it's a decent balance. So that's Great Tusk in a nutshell. It's not really the most fun video to watch, but it definitely is something that you need to prepare for. So being paired with the Great Tusks, there is a Mimikyu. Mimikyu is just a good safeguard Pokemon. In case you're playing against someone that overbenches, has all EXs, you can simply wall with Mimikyu in order to have your opponent kind of deck themselves without you having to attack, and they're not taking prizes, which means Iono is less effective later on. We are also playing a copy of Comfey. Comfey is in here because of flower selecting. When you get something KO'd, such as a Great Tusk, it's a good pivot. Comfey allows you flower selecting. You can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one into your hand, put one into the Lost Zone. It's kind of great for getting through some of those awkward turns. It can help you search some things out and just kind of progress your board further and be a great pivot card, especially with cards like Rescue Board now being printed. Rescue Board, the retreat cost of this Pokemon this card is attached to is 1 less, and if the HP is 30 or less, it has no retreat cost. Thankfully, Comfey has a 1 retreat cost, which means that in turn, Rescue Board basically makes Comfey a free pivot because it has free retreat, so you're able to have something be KO'd, look at the top 2, as well as your draw for turn, kind of thin through your deck and do as much as you need to do. It all works out. Now for the supporters, we are playing 4 of the Explorer's Guidance. Explorer's Guidance, you look at the top 6 cards of your deck, you put 2 of them into your hand and discard the others. This can seem scary just because you have to discard cards, but with things like Sada, getting rid of energy is actually okay, and getting rid of dead cards that you don't need for a certain matchup can be huge. And being able to put 2 into your hand means that you can kind of refresh your hand and set up for the following turns. And the other ancient supporter we're playing is Professor Sada's Vitality. This has been very strong in decks like Roaring Moon, but due to new future Pokemon and ancient Pokemon being printed, cards like Sada or Turo can see some more play. Now Turo not as much, but with Sada definitely. Professor Sada, you choose up to 2 of your ancient Pokemon, attach a basic energy from your discard pile to each of them, and then you draw 3 cards. So this means that you can set up back-to-back Great Tusks and allow yourself to just kind of go through the game. Now, the next cards that we're just going to talk about real quick are just the HP modifiers. Playing Bravery Charm, it just gives your basic Pokemon plus 50 HP, just makes Great Tusk a little bit harder to knock out. Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, the ancient Pokemon this card is attached to gets plus 60. So this means that you can give yourself even more HP, so that way you're not dealing with constant knockouts every turn. Perhaps you can kind of cycle through and get, 2 turns of mill out of 1 Great Tusk as opposed to 1. And then the A-Spec of choice is Hero's Cape. The Pokemon this card is attached to gets 100 extra HP. It's the one that we looked at for Gardevoir. It's just in here, again, just to increase your HP threshold. And everything else is just pretty much to help you set up. We have Pokegears, Palpads, Counter Catchers, just to bring up things that, your opponent might not want to attack with, that are just bench sitters, like Squawkabilly. We have Pokegear, and we also have Eerie, which can help you to kind of get past awkward turns. If your opponent plays Palpad and they may have it in their hand, or they just searched it off of something like Arven, for the following turn you can actually Eerie, and then you get rid of the Palpad. So Eerie is a good inclusion in just being able to make sure that everything is good. So last card to mention, we do have Pidgeot V, as it does allow you to use Vanishing Wings, which means technically, if your opponent doesn't have a Spiritomb in play, you will never deck out, which does remove a win condition from the game, but that's beside the point. So As always, the deck list will be posted right here so you guys have a full clean view of it, and in the description also be the exact 60 I used in this video so you guys can copy and paste it into Pokemon Trading Card Game Live. Again, I know that decks like these aren't the most fun to watch, but with something like this being in the format now, people are going to play it, and it's my job to help you guys understand how the deck works. That way you may do well against it if you ever see it. But overall, I think that's pretty much it for the intro. I do want to say real quick, Zach has officially uploaded his first video on his YouTube channel. You guys could go over to his channel, hit the subscribe button, go like his video, comment, just do anything that you think would make his day. That would be awesome. I know he's really anticipated uploading a video, and I know the support would mean the world to him. But I think that's pretty much it. If you guys do enjoy today's video, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next one. Later. Alrighty guys, let's get into the first game, Great Tusk. Hopefully, we're not playing against anything too horrible. Now, looking at this start, it's kind of awkward, kind of not. We are playing against Charizard. So, my opponent is going to be in for a rough time. If we are able to charm Great Tusk, then we do have the ability to actually put my opponent in an awkward spot. So, my opponent actually mulligans 2 more times. So, we are able to take a couple mulligans too, which can actually increase the chances of us being able to hit a supporter turn 1 and do what we need to do. And we actually get Pokegear as well, so that's huge. Means that we're gonna have access to quite a lot, and if we can get a Sada, we can get 1 Great Tusk powered up as well as get 1 powered up on the bench. So I don't actually hate the chances of what we're doing, and a lot of what Charizard wants to do is being able to draw through the deck, thin energies, grab things with Pidgeot, so we'll be smooth sailing as long as we're able to kind of get things going. So we actually get an Explorer's Guidance, which is huge. Actually, though, we are going to Nest Ball, and we'll grab Greninja. And then I kind of want to see if I can go and hit something along the lines of a Sada. Sada would just be huge in terms of allowing us to draw as much as possible. And we do get that Ancient Booster Energy Capsule as well, which is huge. So we'll Trekking Shoes first, see what we get. We do have the chance at double Pokegear, so I'm okay with that. So we'll go Pokegear 1, and we do get the Sada, which is huge. Which means now we can go Great Tusk, can attach the Ancient Energy Booster, which does put us up to 200, which means that we are out of range for something like Charizard. And then this means that we do have the ability to use Earthen Vessel, get rid of an energy here, and search out 2 energy just to thin the deck. And then from here, we are good to go. We can play the Sada, and then we have the Explorer's Guidance for next turn as well, which is huge. So things are looking perfectly okay with what we want to do. So first thing we'll do is Land Collapse. Just discard the top 4 of my opponent's deck. We're able to get rid of some energies. We do have to be weary of cards like Super Rod, but providing that we can keep up the momentum with playing stuff like Explorer's Guidance, Sada, everything in between, we should be okay. We do have access to Pokegear as well. In fact, if we get the Pokegear down, if we hit another Sada, we can actually power up this Great Tusk and a 3rd one, which means that my opponent is going to have to deal with quite a lot. So, just the ability of having so much HP is huge. Now, if my opponent does have Path, as mentioned, then we are in a bit of a problem. But, not Path, I'm sorry. If they have Vacuum, then they can KO us, but it's not the end of the world. It just is more unfortunate than anything. But overall, as I mentioned, my opponent is going to be going through their deck and just trying to, you know, set up their board, but in turn that just means less card for them to work with, so we kind of have a lot that we can do. So my opponent 1 card in hand, Vitality Band, not going to do too much. They do have access to Tackle if they want to, but they just choose to retreat, which means that now they can use Charizard, and because of this Vitality Band, they are hitting 190 damage. So we do need to be careful because, as I mentioned, if they do have the ability to get something like a tool removal, like Lost Vacuum, they are able to take a prize here, and we actually have to re-promote, so we do have to be weary of that, but it's not the end of the world by any means. I think what I'm going to do here, we'll use the Greninja just to draw 2, just to look through some more cards in the deck. And we do get a Pidgeot and another energy as well, which means that we can attach to this Great Tusk. We do have access to Pokegear. We get another Explorer's Guidance, so looking pretty strong. So we can go Explorer's Guidance. This lets us grab any 2 cards. We just need to be wary of what we grab. We do have access to Mimikyu as well, just in case my opponent's board gets a little bit too built up. But overall, things are looking pretty okay for what I want to do at the moment. So, alright, I thought the game froze. I was scared for a second. So we can bench the Mimikyu, just because it can be a good, decent pivot, depending on what's going on, but providing everything that we need, we don't really have the chance of decking out due to Pidgeot, which means that we can just land collapse and just keep milling my opponent. Now my opponent is going to be able to deal damage to Great Tusk, so will be a little bit unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world by any means. They do have the knockout on this Great Tusk, so if I can find a way to power up another, we'll be okay, but my opponent has roughly 6 turns left. That's 5 prizes, so we should be okay to keep milling. I don't think that there's going to be a world where we run into the issues with it. So, and just like that, we do have the ability to set up yet another Great Tusk as well. I don't think that there's going to be too much that we need to do fully, so I feel comfortable using the guidance here, as it does allow me to see more cards, but also it gives me access to the Sada for later, which means I can benefit more off of it. So we'll use the guidance, and we get the Hero's Cape, which is huge, and we do get the Sada. Now I do have to get rid of the board as well as the Artisan, but I'm not too upset about that. Between the Palpads that we have left and everything else, we should be able to set up roughly a few turns from now, so I'm not quite worried. So we'll just go here. Again, I know that this probably isn't the most entertaining deck to watch, but it is going to be something that is a part of the meta, so we are going to have to kind of adjust to it. So we'll dig a little bit more. We'll get rid of 1 DTE. Feel like I can safely do that, and we do get the board as well, which means that we can have a Comfey pivot, so we can start thinning some cards. So I don't hate that either. So we can attach the rescue board, go for the land collapse, discarding 4. And looking at this, we're hitting some pretty solid cards. My opponent only plays 3 rare candy. They're kind of in for a rough time. We could have used Countercatcher, but it's not the end of the world, and actually with saving Countercatcher, it did open us to the ability to be able to Countercatcher this Entei now rather than a 1 retreater, so there is the Burning Darkness for exactly 190, so again, my opponent able to take a knockout, but I don't think that it's going to be crucial enough to where it's going to cause too many issues. We do have the draw. We do get Bravery Charm, which is huge. Means that we can also put something on another Great Tusk if we are able to set it up. We do get Palpad. We are going to need the Palpad in order to keep discarding. So Palpad will need to be saved. So I'm okay with that. And then let's see. I can Super Rod, I can also Earthen Vessel. I think right now, honestly, I'm okay with using a Sada. And we do get the nest ball as well, which is huge. We also get a couple other cards that we can discard should we not need them. So, let's see, there are 9 cards left in the deck. So I think what we'll do is Hero Cape this Great Tusk just to be safe. We'll Super Rod back in 2 Great Tusks, and we'll keep the 2 energy in there just so that way a Sada next turn does allow me to power them both up. So you can just do those 2. Go for the Nest Ball, which allows us to go Great Tusk. And then we are able to retreat. Counter Catcher up the Entei. Entei won't be able to take a knockout. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180. So my opponent is hitting 180 at most, 200 if they bench another Pokemon. But for right now, we are doing exactly what we need to do. And this is just kind of what Great Tusk does. It's the new quote-unquote Snorlax. There's a lot more that, you gain the ability to work with, but as far as what we're trying to do in this gameplay, it's working out exactly as planned. So and then next turn, we do have access to using Sada. I don't think that this Great Tusk is going to be knocked out, so should be okay. And then we have access to Counter Catcher as well still. So there is a Rare Candy onto Charizard. There is the Infernal Rain, which means that my opponent is going to search energy, and if they do get 3, they can power up their board, but again, it's not going to be enough. So there is only 15 cards left in deck, which means that 3 turns of milling plus 3 draw for turns. My opponent should be in a pretty rough spot. So we do have access to Yuri as well, which means that we can just kind of set up as much as we need to. So there is 6, 4. There's quite a lot of fires, but providing that my opponent can't do too much, I'm not too worried about it. The Eerie, honestly, I'm not really going to need it, so what we can do is Earth Vessel, just to see what is in the deck still. We do have access to those Great Tusks, as mentioned before. We do have access to some Palpads. We have Sadas, so providing that we can double Sada after this Great Tusk is KO'd, we will be in an okay position. So if I go Explorer's Guidance right now, that's my supporter. And then the following turn, I may be in a bit of a tough situation just because Great Tusk isn't powered up. But what I can do is we can go Sada, attach. I mean, this energy really isn't going to matter, but we'll attach it anyways. Draw 3. We do get Hisuian Heavy Ball, so we can see exactly what's prized. This is kind of what hurts, is having the Super Rod and the DTE prize, but it's not the end of the world by any means. So now we at least have the ability to set up Pokegears. We have the access to Palpad, which is good. So honestly, I'm thinking of going Palpad. This will allow us to grab the Sada. And providing everything works out, we should be able to deck my opponent out in the next couple of turns. So I just need to hope that I can draw the other Great Tusk off of these next 3 cards that I look at. And should my opponent use something like Iono, will be a little bit awkward, but it's not the end of the world. So there is a Super Rod, so my opponent is going to be able to put some cards back into their deck. but I don't think that it's going to be enough to really change the state of the game. So they're not hitting enough to one-shot a Great Tusk with a charm on it, so there is the Fleet-Footed. They are at 11 cards left in deck. There's the Burning Rondo to take a prize, which means now we can go Comfey into some pivots, into looking at some extra cards, and as long as we hit the Great Tusk, we should be okay. And speaking of, there is the Great Tusk, so this means that we can go for the... Let's see. If I go Great Tusk into Sada, that's fine. And then Palpad, and then Sada again. I don't hate that. So we can go Bravery Charm. And then we can go Flower Select just to thin the deck. A couple more cards. I mean, none of these really matter, but the Great Tusk could be useful. So we'll grab the Great Tusk, which means now we can go Great Tusk. We could Palpad back in one Sada, just so that way I'm guaranteed to draw into it. And then that should give me enough cards to close out, because I need to streamline Sadas in order to not lose here. So I'm guaranteed a Sada here, so I don't hate that. So we can go Palpad on the Sadas, and then this gives us the ability to use Sada here, which means that we can go 1 and 1, draw ourselves 3 cards, and then we can go Retreat, Great Tusk, and then just so that way we don't risk potentially decking out, we can go Pidgeot right now. My opponent isn't hitting enough. Yeah, that's fine. So I'll use the Pidgeot. Even if I don't draw the other Sada next turn, I'm still not in a bad spot. And between the Great Tusks here, I can streamline enough to finish out this game strong. And even if my opponent plays something like Iono, it gets a little bit awkward, but it's definitely not the end of the world. Just means that it's really one extra turn that we have to worry about. But right now my opponent is only hitting 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 21, 40, 60, 180, 200 if they bench another Pokemon. But if they don't, kind of in for a rude awakening in the turns to come. So there is the boss onto the other Great Tusk, which is fine. That's why we have the other ones to power up. And with the boss, that means no Iono, so we should be okay. And my opponent goes to 5. There's 2. We should be able to close out this game. There is the Quick Search. So my opponent will have 6, 7 cards. And there's the Radzard, so they will have less now. And we can actually counter capture the Radzard, which means that my opponent isn't attacking, which is huge. So we can just go Great Tusk. The one thing that my opponent hasn't paid attention to is the fact that I'm out of switching cards. So with having 4 energy prized, actually benching this Mimikyu and Greninja could have messed me up, but it's not the end of the world by any means. So we can go Great Tusk, we can go Sada, go here and here, draw the 1 card in deck, get the Bravery Charm, which means that we can Bravery Charm this Great Tusk, Pidgeot, Vanishing Wings, and then let's see, my opponent has 10 cards if they Iono. That's 10 cards. It means they'll have 8. I'm getting rid of 4, so realistically, they're not going to have enough cards to really do anything, which means that my opponent Ionos me. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. and then the Pidgeot, so I'm guaranteed to draw the Sada in some way. So I can safely use Land Collapse here. I could have bossed the Radzard, or countercatched the Radzard, but the overall aspect of it wasn't really going to do too much. My opponent, Ionos here, they still have 4 cards left in deck, which means that a Sada will take the KO or Explorer's Guidance. I do need to Sada, but that was just a slight misplay. The best play would have been to definitely countercatcher the Radiant Charizard, simply so my opponent couldn't attack or retreat, and go from there. So my opponent does concede. Great Tusk is definitely one of those decks that you don't have to think about while playing. You kind of have to think in the sense of trying to get, your turns rolling and process how in the late game you're going to play certain supporters and what you're going to do. And thankfully to cards like Sada's Vitality, you're able to actually streamline back-to-back Great Tusks without having too many issues. Make sure you're price checking. I didn't do that, and I almost got punished just due to, having 3 energies plus a super odd priced, but thankfully my opponent didn't pay too much attention to that. But otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. So quick video here, just one gameplay, just so that way you guys can see how the deck works, just because it's kind of the same concept all around. You just play, your cards out and mill your opponent. So there's not real too much strategy aspects depending on what you're playing against. So something like Charizard tends to be on the easier side because they deck themselves for setting up. So, but that being said, guys, I want to thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Let me know down below what some of your favorite decks have been from this format, and maybe you'll see it on one of the next videos. But again, thank you guys for everything, and I will catch you tomorrow. Later.